This past weekend was particularly challenging for the Vancouver Police Department as we responded to a number of violent incidents throughout the city. These incidents, which were serious and required a significant amount of resources, did stretch officers to all corners of the city. And when I say that, I mean the downtown core, East Van, South Slope, West Side. We really were challenged to deal with a lot of very serious incidents in various neighborhoods in the city. I'll run through them one by one, as I said. These incidents include commercial robberies, stranger attacks, violent shoplifters, road rages, and a number of stabbings. I'll run through them and then try my best to answer your questions if you want me to provide more information. I'll start with downtown. Friday night, around dinner time, a 55-year-old cab driver was physically injured and emotionally traumatized after an incident that started in Richmond. We believe that this cabbie picked up a fare in Richmond and was ordered to take the fare into Vancouver. While en route, we believe that the cab driver was assaulted with a weapon, threatened, and forced to drive into the downtown core. While en route, the cabbie was ordered to do things like run red lights and veer into oncoming traffic. Once in the downtown core, the cabbie stopped, the fare got out, and traveled a short distance to another location. We believe at that time the person then began threatening staff at a store at Granville and Georgia Streets while holding a weapon. Staff at that store phoned police. A number of officers did respond immediately. We were able to take the suspect into custody. A 43-year-old man has now been charged with assault with a weapon, uttering threats, and possession of a weapon. And that's in relation to the two incidents, the incident involving the cabbie as well as the incident outside the London Drug Store at Granville and Georgia Street. This man's due back in court on Wednesday. A West End man was injured after he was allegedly attacked with a knife by a neighbor who refused to wear a mask during a ride in the elevator in their apartment building. We believe these two individuals are neighbors. This occurred in the West End in an apartment building on Pendrell Street. VPD received a number of 911 calls on Saturday afternoon reporting an argument between these two men in the hallway. And the argument, which started out over a mask dispute, turned physical. We believe the victim confronted the suspect in the elevator because the suspect wasn't wearing a mask. And we believe that the 56-year-old suspect then allegedly threatened and assaulted the victim. Fortunately, the victim didn't suffer life-threatening injuries, and we were able to arrive and take control of the situation before it further spiraled out of control. The suspect's been charged with assault with a weapon and uttering threats. Also on Saturday, VPD officers who were patrolling Granville Street found a 39-year-old man who was badly injured from a stab wound to the neck. This man was very seriously injured. He did go to hospital. He underwent surgery, and he's now expected to survive. Through the course of our investigation, we believe that this stabbing likely occurred in an apartment building in the area of Granville and Nelson Street. Nobody's been arrested yet. We're still working on the case. We're still gathering evidence, and we haven't yet identified suspects. That's still very much under investigation. Moving over to East Van, a number of very serious incidents that occurred there. Saturday, a fast food restaurant on Powell Street. There was a 23-year-old staff member who was working in this fast food restaurant when a robbery suspect came in. The robbery suspect jumped the counter, physically assaulted the staff member, and stole the cash register from the store. You can imagine this was an extremely traumatic and terrifying incident for the young staff member who was working. The staff member grabbed a bread knife, used the bread knife to defend himself so he could back off, get out of the store, and go to a neighboring store, at which time he asked a staff member there to call 911. The suspect in this case fled before police arrived. We did respond as quickly as we could, and we were able to gather evidence. And through the course of the investigation, we identified a suspect and arrested that suspect a short time later at an apartment building near East Hastings Street and Campbell Avenue. That suspect was arrested for robbery, and he's currently awaiting his first court appearance. Also in East Van, particularly in the downtown east side, International Village is a shopping center located on the border of Chinatown and the downtown east side. A man who was bleeding from the hand walked in. He began kicking over signs, smearing blood on railings, being confrontational with people in the shopping center. Security staff did confront this man, asked him to leave. He began flicking blood in the direction of the security guards and actually hit one of the security guards while doing so. Staff called VPD. We responded immediately. The suspect had fled by that time. However, our investigators, our patrol officers, were able to conduct an investigation. They were able to review security video from inside the shopping center, and they recognized the suspect from previous dealings, and they were able to arrest him nearby a short time later. Kelvin Beddoes is the name of the suspect. He's since been charged with mischief and assault, and he remains in custody. Also in the downtown east side, a chronic offender, a man with 128 prior criminal convictions, was arrested on Saturday near the Stadium SkyTrain station, and he's been charged with robbery. The Vancouver police were called around 5:30 p.m. After an incident that occurred near Abbott and Pender Street. And the victim in this case was sitting in his vehicle outside a shopping center, and he was waiting for his wife, who had gone inside to buy some groceries. And the suspect, we believe, jumped into the bed of his truck, demanded money, produced a knife, and when the victim refused to do so, the suspect then threatened to slash the tires of the vehicle. The victim called police, and the suspect did walk away from the area. However, our officers were able to respond immediately. We were able to locate the suspect a short distance away at the Stadium SkyTrain station and take that man into custody. That man is Jason Fish, and he is currently in custody. This is another great example of somebody calling 911 right away when they're the victim of a crime or when they see a crime in progress. That allows our officers to respond immediately and apprehend a suspect, and that's something we always encourage people to do. Moving over to the west side, a troubling incident that occurred near Vancouver General Hospital. A driver was simply driving down the road, had to slam on the brakes when a person stepped off the curb in front of him, and he had to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting the suspect. This person became enraged, began striking the vehicle multiple times, and then assaulted the driver, punching him, hitting him several times in the head, broke his glasses, and then sprayed him with a substance that we believe is likely bear spray or pepper spray in the face before fleeing. Police were called, we responded, but the suspect did flee the scene prior to our arrival. The victim is a 36-year-old man who lives in Marpole. He wasn't seriously injured, but you can imagine being punched repeatedly by a stranger, being attacked, being sprayed in the faces is going to be, at the very least, emotionally traumatizing, as well as physically traumatizing as well. The suspect in this case is a black woman in her 40s with long black hair and black clothes. She did leave before police arrived, and we're currently conducting an investigation in an effort to identify her and locate her. Also on the west side, police attended a house party in the Oakridge area after a bear spraying incident. Now, we believe there were approximately 15 people who were attending a house party in this area. At some point, a person tried to enter the party and they were refused entry. The person who was hosting the party wasn't familiar with the person or didn't know the person and did not want the person coming into the house. And we believe that when this occurred, the host of the party was again sprayed in the face with bear spray before the suspect fled. Police attended. We offered assistance to the victim, and we broke up the party, sending people home. There were no serious injuries in this case. One more incident that I want to tell you about that was not included in the news release but is equally as troubling. I should have some more information on this either later today or tomorrow. This is an incident that occurred near Gravely Street and Commercial Drive in East Vancouver. It occurred on January 8th at about 2:30 in the morning. There were two women, a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old, who were waiting on Commercial Drive near a bus stop when they were approached by two men in a black truck. One of the men in the truck said something concerning to the girls. We believe the truck possibly circled the block a couple of times before one of the occupants got out of the truck and made these ladies feel quite unsafe. They did the right thing. It was reported to the police. We're investigating this. The description we have right now is a 40-year-old man, unknown race, gray and black t-shirt with black hair and glasses. We're currently conducting an investigation trying to find out more, but it's a concerning incident, so I want everybody to know that it did occur, and I hope to have more information about that soon. As always, we encourage anybody who's the victim of a crime or anybody who has information about a crime to call police right away. These are all examples. These cases that I've talked about are all examples of cases where VPD officers were able to respond right away and either arrest a suspect or gain valuable evidence to assist in an investigation. And the reason why we were able to do that is because people who were the victims or had information about crimes called us right away, and that allowed us to deploy officers into the area. Any in-progress crime where a suspect is still on scene or there's an ongoing public safety risk should be reported to 911. If it's a less urgent matter, if there's a suspect who's left or there's not an urgent public safety issue, those incidents can be reported to our non-emergency line, which is 604-717-3321. In some cases, crimes can be reported online. Regardless of what the crime is, regardless of what the incident is, we encourage people to contact us so that we can properly investigate. I'll start in the room with anybody who may have questions, and then we'll go to the phone line. Anybody who's on the phone who wants to ask a question, please press *1 to get in the queue, and I'll do my best. Anybody in the room?
Have you seen an uptick in violence against drivers, whether taxi or Uber, Lyft, etc., in Vancouver?
I can look into that. I can't say for certain. What I will do is I will look into that, and I will respond to you as soon as I get the information. I'll have to check with our analytics people. Anybody else?
What do you think is driving this violence? There seems to be lots of violence happening in the city. What's driving it right now?
It's hard to say at this point. I mean, we've been contending with a significant amount of violent crime in the city for some time. We've talked a lot about stranger assaults and unprovoked stranger assaults that have occurred throughout the past year. More than 4 a day, random unprovoked stranger attacks, violent shoplifting incidents that have occurred throughout the city. A lot of the crime that we have talked about is tended to be confined to the north end of the city, to the downtown core, and to the east side. However, we're also seeing an increase in concerning incidents that have occurred in the South Slope on the west side. And some of the incidents that I've talked about are concerning incidents as well. So it's difficult to pinpoint the exact cause. However, it's concerning to see this amount of serious crime during the weekend, or at any time for that matter.
That's a very long list, especially on the weekend. Is that stretched resources?
Well, we're always stretched quite thin. Anytime we have a serious incident, whether it be a serious stabbing or a violent shoplifting incident or a serious assault, right off the bat, that can tie up a dozen officers when we factor in our frontline patrol officers, IDET members, follow-up investigators. So when we have this number of incidents, it certainly does stretch our resources thin. However, in these cases, we're able to get to these calls these incidents quickly, in large part because people did report them, to gather that valuable evidence. And in a number of these cases, we were able to arrest suspects very quickly, whether they be on scene or in the case of the fast food restaurant in East Vancouver, we were able to track that suspect down that same day and arrest the suspect. In the other cases that I've spoken about, we were able to gather valuable evidence, and we're continuing to investigate with the hopes that we will identify the people responsible and that it will lead to arrests. Anybody else in the room? Okay, on the phones, star one.
Yes. I would like to know how often do people just argue and come to escalate into assault because of not following the health protocol during this pandemic? And how will the police handle this? Will they often charge people because of people wearing masks or not following the health protocol?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're asking how often we're seeing incidents that escalate to the level of assaults over mask disputes?
Yes.
We have seen a number of incidents that have occurred recently. We always hope that if there are disputes over masks or the public health orders, that people will be able to resolve these incidents on their own. However, we have seen a number of incidents that have escalated to the point where people have been assaulted. The incident that occurred at the Pendrell Street apartment building in the West End on the weekend is just the latest example, and perhaps an extreme example, of two people who had a mask dispute in an elevator that turned quite violent and resulted in, we believe, one person being stabbed. Also in recent weeks, we had an incident that originated on a bus with a person who took exception to having his photo taken as a result of another passenger who didn't like the fact that he wasn't wearing a mask. That escalated to a violent confrontation out on the sidewalk where somebody was seriously hurt and required medical attention. So we do from time to time see mask disputes or COVID disputes that do result in serious physical injury or criminal incidents. However, we hope and we trust that people will be sensible and be able to resolve whatever conflicts they have without it escalating to that point.
Thank you.
You bet. Go ahead. Go ahead with your question. Hi.
Question. And just during this latest wave of Omicron, have you had any staffing issues or anticipate any in the coming days or weeks? And if so, what can be done to mitigate that?
Sure. So you're asking regarding staffing issues as it relates to Omicron and what's going to be done to mitigate that. Right now, we're doing okay. We're taking every precaution we can to protect our workforce from the spread of COVID and to protect the community that we serve. We need to keep our officers healthy so that they can keep the public safe. We are following all public health order and work safe guidelines. We're consistently consulting with health and safety experts. At this point, we are not currently concerned with our staffing levels or our ability to keep the community safe and to serve the public. We also have contingency plans in place should things change, and these are contingency plans that have been in place throughout the pandemic in the event that a number of our officers do go down. At this point, we haven't had to do that, and we're doing okay.